Hello, everyone, and welcome to another installment of TEDXcellence, the show in which I really do attempt to learn things. Really. I do. Really. And I come to you live from my Corona bunker on the moon with Dogcat Fox, a Dr. Pepper, and all of you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sunday, a special edition of TEDXcellence. And why did I say Dr. Pepper? Well, it is a little early. It's a little early for a pepper jack, so I'm taking it easy this morning and having one of the rare, now limited edition Dr. Peppers, given that there's a shortage in the country, which is a tragedy all its own. Yes, today is a special edition because this could go as per a regular time frame for an episode, or it could go exceedingly lengthy. I don't know. Reason being that the presentation we'll be looking at today runs just under an hour. And also because it covers a subject that I am honestly very curious about. And that is the concept of anti-racism. Now, this term sort of came to my attention several months back when I did a video on a lady named Rachel Cargill, who has made a bit of a career on the basis of being a quote-unquote anti-racist, save for the fact that it was never very clearly defined what that meant in the grand scheme of things. But now, anti-racism is the latest and perhaps the most well-funded cause celeb. The individual we'll be looking at today, or at least one of three, I don't know who the other two interviewers are, if that's who they are, is Ibram X. Kendi. And he has become a overnight sensation on the subject of anti-racism because just this year, and this is one of the rare instances where I did a little research on who I was looking at beforehand. Just this year, in July of 2020, he became the director of the Center for Anti-Racist Research in Boston, at Boston University. And the Center for Anti-Racism Research, just within the last week or so, received a $10 million grant, or donation, or whatever you want to call it, from Jack Dorsey of Twitter. So this is a bigger deal than you might think. And given the fact that I have absolutely no idea what it all is supposed to mean, I'd rather hear it directly from the source. But all that is preamble. Who is joining me on this escapade of discovery today? Well, that would be Black Belt for Christ. Hello. Cody Berman. Hello. Havoc Vladimirovich Stalinov. Hello. No room for squares. Hello. My voice is still waking up along with me, apparently. Dark Alile. Hello. Mr. E. Hello. Matt Barnes, hello. Killer Turnus, hello. And then chat jump because, of course, it does. Brittany Holland, hello. Attila Paxur, hello. Rotten Corpse, hello. Toku, hello. Lots of people talking all at once. Mike R, hello. El Vaquero 555, hello. Brian Has Opinions, formerly the Broken Baller, hello. Let's see. Megan Ring, hello. Ercolo De Stefano, or Ocole De Stefano. Raziel, hello. St. Michael, hello. Gulf City, Peterbilt Confederacy 379, hello. Big Assassin 80, hello. Zan Wild, hello. This is Kyle, thank you so much. Hello, chat people and scribbles. Hello, Kyle. All you need, hello. Gen T Maxi, hello. Pink Kyle, the Driving 8-Man, thank you so much. It's never too early, especially with this insanity. Well, maybe, but I'm trying to be an adult. Luke Skywalker 2, hello. Mike Savage, Blarg. Fernanda, hello. Brutus, hello. You're a ridiculous lunatic, hello. Mr. Hugh, hello. Lexi Mads, hello. Zero the Hero 909, hello. Matt Oracle, or Cycle, Orkyle, Mott Orkyle, motorcycle. I don't know. No Name, hello. Data Wasteland, hello. Delta Cross, hello. And Keeverdam, hello. If I missed anybody, I do apologize, but I do want to get into this because it is going to be a lengthy one. So, all that is preamble. Get your bingo cards ready. It's going to be a lengthy one conceivably. So here's the rules as far as it goes. I am going to go for at least an hour and a half. That probably means about an hour and 15 minutes, and then a few minutes to talk to you guys and go over the bingo card, at least. If it continues to keep my attention, and or if the majority of you want me to continue, I will consider going past that. But I figure within an hour and a half's time, we should get the gist of what the body of the essay is, if you get my meaning. If we don't, maybe we'll go a little further. If it becomes boring or protracted or something, I'll wrap it up within an hour and a half. So if you're watching this in the future and you see that the timestamp has gone beyond significantly an hour and a half, you already know the answer. And that's cheating. You shouldn't look at the timestamp. Anyway, as usual, guys, I'll start off with a few seconds. I believe there is an applause track right here. So if you hear the applause, let me know, and then we will continue.
So welcome, Ibram, and thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, applause, and thank you, Ibram, for joining us. You guys hear all that? If so, we will move on. I hope everybody's having a good Sunday, by the way. I didn't give the day a particular vocabulary word today. That was a failing on my part. Scientific Sunday. That's what it is, Scientific Sunday. Audio's good. All you need says Rick Ashbringer says it's good. No Names is good. Zaubla says it's good. All right. Let us continue.
Well, thank you, Chloe and Whitney, and thank you everyone for joining this conversation. And so a few weeks ago on the same day we learned about the brutal murder of George Floyd, we also learned that a white woman in Central Park who chose not to leash her dog and was told by a black man nearby that she needed to leash her dog, instead decided to threaten this black male, instead decided to call the police and claim that her life was being threatened.
Yeah, that was what, Amy Cooper? And yeah, she was, as far as we can tell, because the video is limited, she was a Karen, as they say, an actual like dyed-in-the-wool official. The definition actually fits Karen, and her life was basically destroyed as a result of that. And you can say whether or not that was justified, etc. But yeah, and George Floyd's death. And Amy Cooper, I think it was Amy Cooper. I could be mistaken. Something Cooper. These two events rest on equitable level, then? I don't know.
And of course, when we learned about that through the video, many Americans were outraged.
Yes.
And this woman, Amy Cooper,
yes,
going on national TV and saying, like countless other Americans have said right after they engaged in a racist act, I am not racist.
Okay. Engaged in a racist act. See, here's the thing, and I know this is going to sound like splitting hairs to a lot of people. It's difficult to know, especially if you're interpreting something that's ambiguous, whether someone is a racist in their heart of hearts, or if they said something that can be construed as racist. Now, of course, there's some things that just, there's no differential, there's no ambiguity. Was Amy Cooper being racist? Can you say that with 100% certainty? I don't know if you could say it then. You could say it that she was being a Karen, but anyway.
And I say countless Americans because when you really think about the history of Americans expressing racist ideas, supporting racist policies, you're really talking about a history of people who have claimed they're not racist, because everyone claims that they're not racist.
So obviously they're all lying. Okay, well, we're going to start off with free space on the bingo card. By the way, if I didn't already mention it, and I can't remember if I did because my brain's still waking up. If you don't have the bingo card ready, the link is in the description. I am circling free space, and mind reading assumes motives. Anybody who says I'm not racist obviously is racist. Right.
Whether we're talking about the Amy Coopers of the world, whether we're talking about Donald Trump, who right after he said that majority Black Baltimore is a rat and rodent-infested mess that no human being would want to live in. And
did he say majority Black Baltimore? Was that a quote from Donald Trump? Did he use those words? I honestly don't know.
Was challenged as being racist. He said, actually, I'm the least racist person anywhere in the world. And so really the heartbeat of racism itself has always been denial. And the sound of that heartbeat has always been, I'm not racist.
I'm not a witch. Well, that's just more evidence that you are a witch now, isn't it? The very denial of your sin is evidence against you. Correct?
And so what I'm trying to do with my work is to really get Americans to eliminate the concept of not racist from their vocabulary. Eliminate
the concept of not racist. Okay, now then I know I'm being sarcastic and facetious here and there, but this is the part where I'm actually attempting to absorb what is being said, because this is, like I said, this is something that's being taken very seriously right now. If only by rich celebrities and, you know, the people that want to have a coffee table book on their coffee table to show off how virtuous they are. But this is going mainstream, so I want to understand. Okay, you want to eliminate not racist from the vocabulary. Okay.
And realize we're either being racist or anti-racist. We're
racist or anti-racist. Okay. So, like the title of the presentation says, the difference between being not racist and anti-racist. So I need to be told, what is the definition of anti-racist?
We're either expressing ideas that suggest certain racial groups are better or worse than others, superior or inferior than others. We're either being racist or we're being anti-racist.
I get it. What is the definition of anti-racist? And how does that differ from simply not being racist?
We're expressing notions that the racial groups are equals, despite any cultural and ethnic differences.
Okay, are you expressing that? I mean, a minute ago it sounded like you. Okay, I'll wait.
Either supporting policies that are leading to racial inequities and injustice, like we saw in Louisville where Breonna Taylor was murdered, or we're supporting policies and pushing policies that are leading to justice and equity for all.
And now I'll admit, I'm not as familiar with the Breonna Taylor case as some of the other cases that have been in recent history. Was her death the result of a racist policy? I don't know. I know that she was an innocent person who was, like, I think they went to the wrong house or something, or they operated on false information. So was whatever led up to her death inherently race-based? Or is it just bad training? I don't know.
And so I think we should be very clear about whether we're expressing racist ideas, about whether we're expressing supporting racist policies, and admit when we are.
Okay, so a couple things I need here. Again, this is a wish list, and hopefully with the amount of time that's spent on this thing, we get some of it. I need to know, what is the actual definition of anti-racist? And I need some active examples of what he means by a racist policy that is being enforced, and what is the process of admitting it? Like, what does that mean? Like, give me an example of something.
Because to be anti-racist,
yes,
is to admit when we expressed a racist idea.
To be anti-racist is to admit when we express a racist idea. To be anti-racist is to admit when we express a racist idea. A racist idea. Okay, so if I express an idea, how do I admit to it being racist if I don't consider myself racist? Who then tells me that my idea is racist? And if I'm accused of thinking in a racist way, either I admit to being racist, or by saying I'm not racist, I'm admitting I'm racist. That is the mental circuit that I'm making right now and trying to understand what he just said. Admit to when we express a racist idea. Okay.
Is to say, you know what? When I was doing that in Central Park, I was indeed being racist.
Okay, so Amy Cooper needs to admit that she was racist because you say that she was being racist. And if she doesn't admit to being racist, that just shows that she's a racist. So if I do something that is deemed to be racist, okay, and I admit for whatever reason that what I did was racist, that then makes me an anti-racist? How? Have I then confessed the sin out of my soul at that point? Am I then a trusted member of society because I, divested myself of my wretchedness or something? And what if I'm just told what I said was racist? I mean, who judges that? Okay.
But I'm going to change. I'm going to strive to be anti-racist.
I'm going to strive to be anti-racist. Is there an end to that journey? Is there a point at which I no longer have to prove my purity to, for the sake of conversation, I'll say our speaker? I mean, is there a certification I can get or something where I don't have to, plead for forgiveness anymore for something I'm told is racist, whether it was racist or not, or fueled by racial motivations or not? What does achieving anti-racism look like? And when can I stop having to prove myself or seek forgiveness?
And to be racist is to constantly deny the racial inequities that pervade American society, to constantly deny the racist ideas that pervade American minds. And so I want to build a just and equitable society. And the only way we're going to even begin that process is if we admit our racism and start building an anti-racist world.
Okay, so to deny the accusation that Americans are pervaded by racism is to be racist. Okay, so first and foremost, there is racism in the world. There are racist people in the world. There are people who discriminate against other people for a myriad of things, some or one of them being race. It has always been, and it always shall be. So it's not a really difficult journey to admit that racism exists in the world. Does it pervade American minds? Are Americans writ large fueled by racism? Fueled by either a elevation and or denigration of one race over others, or other races under one, or anything like that? Is that the world we live in? Every person I see down the street is probably a racist. And if I don't admit to that, if I don't admit that racism is the prevalent, I don't know, factor of thinking in American life, then I am racist for not admitting everything is fueled by racism. You know, and I've made this comparison countless times, and I know it's been made countless times in the past by other people, and it's a very easy comparison. This sounds a lot like original sin. This sounds a lot like if you deny the sin in yourself, you are perpetuating the sin of others, you know, doing the devil's work and so on. How do you prove a negative? How do I prove to you that I am not racist? All right. And, you know, on the other side, how does our speaker prove that everybody in America is a racist? Well, he just has to say so, because then the accusation's been made, and how, again, does somebody prove a negative? Can I prove that every American isn't racist? I can't. I literally cannot prove that, because I'm not a mind reader. So by saying that, then I'm admitting that it's true? This is where my mind's going on this already.
Thank you.
Wow, that was the shortest TEDx talk I've ever seen. 3 minutes, 47 seconds. All right, guys. Well, let's look at the bingo card. No, I know. That was just the introduction, I suppose. Expo Hotep, do you float? Yeah. There you go. Do you float? We're gonna dunk you in the lake and see if you float. If you float, yeah. Okay, so I didn't know who our speakers were. So we've got Ibram X. Kendi, who is the subject of the talk. Chloe Sasha from TED. Okay, and Whitney Pennington Rogers from TED. All right, interesting.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thank you so much for telling us all that we can't say we're not racist anymore. Otherwise, we're confessing how evil we are.
You know, your book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, has become a bestseller in light of what's been happening, and you've been speaking a bit to, you know, the ways in which anti-racism and racism are the only two polar opposite ways to hold a view on racism.
Yeah, it sounds a little bizarre, doesn't it? You're either with me or you're against me, my way or the highway. I mean, I suppose it is one of those things where it's like being a little racist is like being a little pregnant. But anti-racism, obviously, as the title says, it's not about being not racist. It's about, I guess, living in perpetual wretchedness for being a racist because you just are, because it's just the default position. It's sort of like denying that. Oh, well, I mean, okay, so to be an anti-racist is to be someone who believes the world is round. It just is. Racism just is the standard. There is no doubt. Anyone who says otherwise is some whack job on the fringe that needs to be dismissed and told that they're, you know, living in a fantasy world. You're delusional, etc. Okay, so anti-racism is the world is round, or the world is spherical, I suppose is the more accurate term. Okay, I think I'm trying to find a way to, you know, analogize this where it makes a bit more sense, which is a tough uphill battle.
I'm curious if you could talk a little bit more about what the basic tenets of anti-racism are for people who aren't as familiar with it in terms of how they can be anti-racist.
Tenets. That's an interesting word. The tenets. What is a tenet, just for definition purposes? Let's see. Tenet was the common spelling in the 1600s for tenet, which was defined as a belief or principle. Okay. The basic beliefs and or principles of anti-racism. Now remember, there's an ism at the end, regardless, so it is an ideology of a kind.
Sure. And so I mentioned in my talk that the heartbeat of racism is denial.
The heartbeat of racism is denial. Right. Okay. So I am not a murderer is the heartbeat of guilt for murder. Right? Okay. Thank you, Joe Fapps. Forgot word salad, new word obesity. Now word obesity. Yeah, let's go to the card real quick. Yeah, word salad I'm completely comfortable with because I've had to try to parse out several things he said so far. Attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase. Well, obviously, anti-racism isn't necessarily a new buzzword, buzz phrase, but it is the product he is selling. And he's the first one to become the most prominent sort of academic on the subject. So I'm circling that one. Systemic institutional. I don't know if he's used the words yet. Patriarchy, no. Plays victim. I mean, I guess in the abstract, that is the case, but I'll wait and see if there's anything more specific. Wage gap, no. Childhood or family anecdote. He hasn't talked about his personal history yet. Anecdote that probably never happened. He hasn't given us any anecdotes. Well, except for Amy Cooper and mentioning Breonna Taylor, and those things actually did happen. Weightless example, not yet. Privilege, hasn't said the word. White supremacy, hasn't used the phrase, but I'd be amazed if it doesn't come up at some point. A list, we might be getting to it now with whatever tenets. I mean, we can, it's a little amorphous, but we'll see. Toxic, no. Make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason. Well, that's going to be a rough one because this whole thing is about race. So there's not really, it would have to be something in conjunction with like an anecdote or an example where one doesn't matter for the other. But otherwise, it's going to be a rough because this entire subject is about race. So he can't really make anything about race for no reason. There's a reason. Microaggressions, unconscious bias, not yet. Leaves out vital context. We'll see. Self-vilification or wretchedness. I have a very serious doubt that he's going to self-vilify or self-wretchedness himself here. Benevolent condescension. If not specifically, I'm sure we'll get there. Equity. I don't think he said the word yet. We'll see. Marginalized, marginalization, not yet. Feminism, no. Takes credit for something done by others or experienced by others in their demographic, not yet specifically. Melodramatic, pausing for effect. We'll see. Like I said, his opening introduction thing was obviously a bit practiced, and he's a professional speaker, so what constitutes melodrama here, we'll have to wait and see. John Sislowski, thank you so much. My wife is Southeast Asian, says Westerners are non-racist, thinks these people are delusional. As she says, in her culture, racism isn't a moral failing. That's an interesting perspective, I guess. I don't know. Like I've said before, I grew up in the sort of the welcome aftermath of the civil rights movement. I grew up under the notion of Martin Luther King and the I Have a Dream speech. This was a big deal when I was growing up and was celebrated. Like I think Martin Luther King's birthday becoming a holiday. I forget when that happened, but I don't think it happened too far around when I was born. It was a relatively new thing at that point. So that became a big deal. And yeah, I grew up sort of, you know, the very simple phrases that should be universal truths in my mind. You know, you estimate someone on the content of their character, not the color of their skin. Period. Stop. The end. That's it. You know, skin color, eye color, hair color, none of these things are determinative factors of someone's worth or value or their goodness or their badness or anything like that. You know, it's how people treat one another, how you treat yourself, and so on. So, you know, ever since this stuff started bubbling up again, it always sounds so just out of, like, I don't know, mind beams from Mars or something. Like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I said before, it's not that I think that no one's racist and racism has been eliminated. Yeah, no, it hasn't been. It never will be. But can we at least take a moment to say things are a heck of a lot better now than they used to be? We don't have laws that explicitly divide people up, at least not yet. We had a black president for 2 terms. Anytime anyone is hurt now who happens to be anything other than white by a white police officer, it becomes a gigantic news story. Condemnation from all over the place, whether it's justified or not after a review of the facts, between the Ferguson, the Brown case, and now George Floyd and so on. Racism is not popular. The KKK is not running rampant through the country. This is not something that is celebrated or promoted or endorsed by the vast majority of people. But the fear of the accusation, being told that subconsciously you are, walking on eggshells around every situation on the chance you might be accused of something that is construed to be racist or sexist or Me Too or whatever else. It's the fear that is fueling all this, the fear of being called a bad name. It's really disturbing. Anyway.
And really the heartbeat of anti-racism is confession.
Whoa! Oh, okay. I mean, I brought up the religious symbolism there a minute ago, and okay. The heartbeat of anti-racism is confession. Wow. All right. You have my attention.
Is the recognition that to grow up in this society is to literally, at some point in our lives, probably internalize.
Literally, at some point in our lives, probably internalize. Literally, probably. You want to step down another level from that one?
Ideas that are racist, ideas that suggest certain racial groups are better or worse than others.
To grow up in this society makes you inherently a sinner. And the only path towards salvation is confession. Got it.
And because we believe in racial hierarchy, because Americans have been systematically taught that Black people are more dangerous, that Black people are more criminal-like.
Systemic. Circling systemic/institutional on the bingo card.
When we live in a society where Black people are 40% of the national incarcerated population, that's going to seem normal to people. When we live in a society, in a city like Minneapolis, where Black people are 20% of the population, but more than 60% of the people being subjected to police shootings, it's going to seem normal.
And just for reference as we proceed, I obviously don't have any way in real time to check whether or not his statistics he's putting out there are true or not, or accurate or not. So unless there's something he brings up that I have some personal knowledge of in some way, for the sake of argument, I will just defer to the statistics he's giving. However, I do not defer the conclusions made by the statistics provided, because then we get into the God of the gaps theory of statistical analysis. Here's a disparity, therefore sexism, therefore racism, therefore whatever. That part I won't concede, but like I say, for the sake of argument, I'll concede to the numbers at least.
And so to be anti-racist is to believe that there's nothing wrong or inferior about Black people or any other racial group. There's nothing dangerous about Black people or any other racial group.
To be anti-racist is to not believe there's anything wrong with Black people as a racial group. I want to back up just a couple seconds to make sure I got that. Sorry, guys, just want to make sure. Okay.
When we live in a society, in a city like Minneapolis, where Black people are 20% of the population, but more than 60% of the people being subjected to police shootings, it's going to seem normal. And so to be anti-racist is to believe that there's nothing wrong or inferior about Black people or any other racial group. There's nothing dangerous about Black people or any other racial group.
Okay. To be anti-racist is to not assess skin color as a determinative factor of someone's character. That's what it means to be anti-racist. So being anti-racist is not just believing that everybody's racist and confession is the core tenet of it, but it's also to believe that the content of one's character is what counts and not the color of their skin. So if I say I don't value people on the basis of their skin color, then I'm only halfway to being an anti-racist, because then if I say that, then I'm denying racism in my heart, which is inherent because of the society that I grew up in. So then I have to confess that there's racism in me, even though I'm an anti-racist because I don't value people on the basis of their skin color. But to say that I don't value people on the basis of their skin color is to deny that I'm actually a racist, because saying I'm not a racist is racist. Ex-Bubba Hotep, thank you so much. So maybe, just maybe, we should judge people by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm getting conflicting messages here, because I'm being told that if I say that in my heart of hearts, in my mind, in my intent, in everything that is within me, I don't value skin color as a character assessment, saying that in and of itself is wrong. Saying that in and of itself is denial. And we can't deny racism. We must confess to racism. But to be anti-racist is to not see people of different colors as inherently worse or dangerous or anything else. But if you do that, you're denying racism, aren't you? You see where I'm coming from here? I'm trying to parse it out.
And so when we see these racial disparities all around us, we see them as abnormal.
Racial disparities. Again, God of the Gaps theory of statistical analysis. Here is a disparity between two demographics, whether it's gender or race or class or something else. And just on the basis of showing you these two numbers or three numbers or whatever, without giving any other analysis to it, you point to the space between those two things and say, this is an example of fill in the blank. Or in a lot of TEDx cases, they'll just, based on the subject matter of the talk, they'll show you two statistics or two sets of numbers, and then just say nothing else and just allow your imaginations to fill in the blank given the subject matter of the talk. Racial disparities do not inherently mean racism. It just does not. You need more information than that. You need to get more specific than that. Just showing a disparity between this demographic and that demographic does not inherently thus indicate discrimination. You need more information. That's not how the world works. That's not how information works. That's how propaganda works. Just saying.
And then we start to figure out, okay, what policies are behind so many Black people being killed by police? What policies are behind so many Latinx people being disproportionately infected with COVID?
What policies are behind Latinx people being infected with COVID? I don't know. Okay, I'm open to find out what policy is causing Latin people, Latino people, Hispanic people to be infected with COVID more than others. What policy is that? Because if you just say that there's a policy out there that's making this happen, but you don't tell us or at least give us an indication of what it is, then we're just talking conspiracy theory. And I heard that those are a bad thing these days, inherently.
How can I be a part of the struggle to upend those policies and replace them with more anti-racist policies?
So Latino people being infected with COVID is a direct result of a racist policy. What is the policy that is doing that? I mean, that's a very specific effect of whatever you're talking about. So what policy is infecting Latino people with COVID more than others? I really like to know. And look at them just nod. Okay, ask some questions. Please tell me. This is at least going to be somewhat interrogative. Just a little bit. Just a little. I know this, you know, I'm getting the sense that this is going to be a very reverent interaction. And I use that word specifically. But please at least ask some questions.
And so it sounds like you do make that distinction then between not racist and anti-racist.
No, he doesn't. He just combined the two together a second ago. To be anti-racist is to not see people of other colors as inherently dangerous or bad, which is simply being someone who is not racist. But being not racist and saying, I am not racist, is denial. As he said earlier, it's denial of racism. It's denial of the inherent racism that we all internalize growing up in this society. So how can you ever be not racist? How can you ever not operate where skin color is irrelevant if you're always racist because you grew up where you did and you have internalized what you have? It seems like it's a trap that you cannot get out of no matter what. Or am I misunderstanding something?
And I guess, could you talk a little bit more about that and break that down? What is the difference between the two?
Yes, I think that was the first question he was asked. And he's not distinguished the two. He's actually combined them now. Okay, second bite at the apple. And I use that phrase intentionally as well. Tell us the difference between not being racist and anti-racist. Because so far I've heard denial and confession. Except to be anti-racist is to be in denial, per your own definition.
In the most simplest way.
Yes, please. Just give me the elevator pitch. Honestly, just give me the foundation. Just give me the basic building blocks of this.
A not racist is a racist who is in denial.
Okay. Everybody is racist, no matter what. Everyone is racist, no matter what. Even if you never do or say or think anything in any way, shape, or form that can be considered racist, and someone asks you, for whatever reason, are you a racist? And in all temporal reality, in all truths of truths, you can say, no, I'm not. I mean, to be not a racist inexorably involves the concept of denial. You are denying that you are racist. You can't avoid that part. So he's right in that sense. to say you're not a racist is denial. The problem for him is the burden of proof is not on the person denying it. The onus, if there is to be an onus, goes upon the accuser or the interrogator. Thank you, Christopher Fluet. Would you consider a Catch-22 commie talk square? I don't know. The current bingo card is relatively. This is the most recent version. I think I only changed it like maybe a week ago or a few days back. So I want to sit with this one for a while and see if we encounter any real problems. So far, it's been going pretty good with this version. I don't really see anything on there that isn't valid or is so ambiguous that it can't be explicitly identified in a talk. So I'll think about it, though. I mean, if we start seeing that kind of thing, if we start seeing these sort of mind trap kind of deals, I'll think about it. Thank you, Ex-Bubba Hotep. One day the person telling people how not to be racists won't be racist. Yeah. Okay, I've babbled a little bit. I'm going to back up a few seconds so we get the fullness of his answer here. One more time and then continue.
A little bit more about that and break that down. What is the difference between the two?
In the most simplest way, a not racist is a racist who is in denial.
A not racist is a racist who is in denial. Right. So everybody is racist. Doesn't matter whether you confess to it or not. Obviously, if you confess to it, you're done. But if you deny it, you're also done. Got it.
And an anti-racist is someone who is willing to admit the times in which they're being racist and who is willing to recognize the inequities and the problems of racial problems of our society, and who is willing to challenge those racial inequities by challenging policy. And so I'm saying this because literally slaveholders.
Okay. Well, I'll back up in a second. It's interesting to me that the definition of difference between a not racist and an anti-racist, there's a lot more words involved in an anti-racist and a not racist. A not racist is someone who is a racist in denial, all right? And then an anti-racist is someone who confesses their racism, admits to their racism, recognizes this. I mean, if I recognize, just as an example, let's jump back in time for a second, and let's say that I'm living in the 1963 Alabama, and I'm a civil rights worker, okay? And I recognize that laws in the South, policies in the South are racist, like literally racist, segregationist, the whole 9 yards, right? Okay. And let's say that at the same time, I'm a civil rights worker and I move through the world and I operate on a belief that race is irrelevant as a signifier of someone's character. Now, I've recognized there are racist policies, but if somebody came up to me and said, "What are you, a racist?" I'd say, "No, I'm not a racist." So by his definition, I'm not allowed to say I'm not a racist, but I'm not a not racist because I recognize racist policies. I know. It sounds. You might think I'm being condescending here. I am honestly trying to piece it, and I've explained this before on the channel. Even if I disagree with someone, or if some concept sounds completely baffling to me, my intent is to at least attempt to understand their reasoning and where they are coming from, even if ultimately I don't agree with it. I want to at least understand the argument, even if I don't accept the argument. And this is where I'm at right now. He's given his simplest explanation, which is really all this talk should be at the end of the day. If you need anything else, I'm not quite sure what. But what he is saying makes absolutely no sense. Logically, societally, reasonably, it doesn't. He's combined the two concepts, he says, that are at odds with one another together at one point, and now he's making far more conditions necessary to achieve the one state of being versus the other. The other is simply saying, I'm not a racist, which obviously, again, puts the onus on the accuser to prove that I'm lying. Because I'm not going to sit there and prove a negative to whoever's accusing me of something. So the path of least resistance to making someone feel small is to get them to make themselves small without you having to do any work. Thank you, Megan Ring. So even the anti-racist is still racist. Well, again, if he says that being anti-racist is to not assess anyone on the basis of their skin color as dangerous or bad, which is the inherent idea behind colorblindness and not being a racist, but then to not be a racist, and I would assume if someone were to say I'm colorblind, he would put them in the same category. That is denial of the inherent racism that you possess because of the society that you grew up in and have internalized racist thoughts and ideas. Okay. Thank you, Bacala Driving 8-Man. Racism is a natural trait in all creatures. Well, I mean, like I said, the clearest example I can think of, or the clearest analogy I can think of is anti-racism is people who believe the earth is spherical. Like it is a known, provable, hard science fact that racism pervades everything and everyone all the time. And to say otherwise makes you a nut job wearing a tinfoil hat somewhere babbling in a corner. That is how I'm interpreting what he's saying here.
Slave traders imagine that their ideas.
Okay, sorry, I cut him off. I need to back up a little bit because he was talking about slave traders or something. Okay.
Is a racist who is in denial. And an anti-racist is someone who is willing to admit the times in which they're being racist and who is willing to recognize the inequities and the problems of racial problems of our society, and who is willing to challenge those racial inequities by challenging policy.
Okay, so on top of admitting to one's inherent racism, confessing when you are or are thinking racist things or doing racist things, recognizing racist policies, and actively opposing them as an activist. So in order to be an anti-racist, you have to be also an activist on top of confessing your inherent perpetual racism and the inherent perpetual racism in society. Okay.
And so I'm saying this because literally slaveholders, slave traders imagine that their ideas in our terms were not racist. They would say things like Black people are the cursed descendants of Ham, and they're cursed forever into enslavement.
Okay, slavery is not inherent to only being visited upon Black people. I mean, let's just set aside Black people selling Black people into slavery. Native American tribes took slaves from other tribes. White people have been enslaved, Christian slaves, the Irish. I mean, the word, as has been brought up countless times, the word slave itself derives from Slavic peoples enslaved. So, okay.
This isn't, I'm not racist.
Well, yeah.
This is God's law.
Oh, so is that the thinking today then? I mean, going back to I'm assuming you're going back to American history slave times or British slave trade type stuff. Is that how it's done today? I mean, you know, all that legalized slavery we have in America. And that's not to say that slavery doesn't exist anymore. Oh, no. Slavery exists in lots of places in this world. And I'm sure in some places it's also seen as God's law. But so far as I know, he keeps talking about this society, America. So I'm referring in my own mind everything he's saying to America today. So how does this apply to America today? Slavery?
They would say things like,
Yeah, they would. In the past, they would. What does that have to do with right now? Is that what is fueling racism in America today? A religious belief of warrant over other races? That Donald Trump is driven by a religious justification to be a racist, in your estimation? That Amy Cooper said what she said because she believes she is entitled to by God's law? Why are you bringing up God's law arguments for racism and slavery?
Based on science, based on ethnology, based on natural history, Black people by nature are predisposed to slavery and servility.
Those thoughts are irrelevant, though. I mean, we've already established that racism persists everywhere, all the time, no matter what. American society, American minds, ta-da. I mean, what does? Okay, the justification back in the olden days might have been it's God's law. Okay, and what does that have to do with being an anti-racist today? What does that mean? How is that relevant? I'm circling weightless example. I have absolutely no idea why bringing up slavery justifications of hundreds of years ago, and let me say again, religious justifications for slavery are things that still exist today in parts of the world. But also, as far as I know, we're talking about America. Every example he's brought up dealt with America, current or past. What does God's law slavery justifications have to do with anti-racism in America today? Nothing.
This is nature's law. I'm not racist. I'm actually doing what nature said I'm supposed to be doing. And
Is that what Americans are thinking? When someone says, I'm not racist, they are saying it because nature's law says that they are superior to other races? That's what they're actually meaning when they say they're not racist. Okay.
And so this construct of being not racist and denying one's racism goes all the way back to the origins of this country.
Construct of being not racist goes back to the origins of this country. So when I say I'm not racist, what I'm actually saying is, by God's will and by natural selection, I am superior to everybody else because America foundations. Okay. Yeah, and look, hey, is that the answer to the question? That's really the answer to the question. Okay, thank you, Chicago Mike. Once upon a time, the U.S. had Jim Crow laws and slavery, therefore racism. Yeah. And you know what? The Civil Rights Act, and I've made this point many times before. You know what the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was, and the subsequent legislation that continued onward is based off that framework. Those were confessions. It's true. Laws are confessions. Laws are confessions by a society of the unavoidable nature of the fallibility of human beings. Okay? Laws are a confession. We were operating incorrectly prior to this. Now we promise to endeavor to become better. Laws are not a cure. Not necessarily. They're a guide with disincentives, obviously, for breaking them. But they're also a confession of having done wrong. 1964 Civil Rights Act was a confession that America was operating in a bad way for a long time prior. And signing those laws into the books is a confession, and a promise to do better. So anybody who says people think that the Civil Rights Act 1964 cured racism, like, no. And if anybody believes that, they're obviously wrong. No, the 1964 Civil Rights Act and subsequent legislation was a confession that we screwed up, that we had been screwed up for a long time, that what we were doing was wrong. And we're going to try to change. And we have changed significantly. It's people that don't want to recognize that just boggle my mind. It'll never be perfect. We will never be a pure society completely because people are fallible. The laws are there as an admission to that. Anyway, I've said that before. Thank you, Punctuation. I'm apparently not on time. I'm anti-on time. Yeah, the logic here is just amazing. And good God, I'm an hour into this broadcast and only 7 minutes, 41 seconds into the presentation. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's no yeah. He didn't explain anything. Come on. Please don't tell me you're just going to roll over on this stuff. Come on. Your hesitation. I mean, I'm not a mind reader, but I gotta believe that you're listening to this and there are a lot of questions in your head. Please continue asking them and don't let him off the hook. He didn't explain anything. Slavery? You're asking for definitions of two terms. He gives the definition for the first term in about one sentence. The definition for the second term, he rattles on forever about stuff and things that don't. What? Don't say okay, please.
And why do you think it has been so hard for some people now to still accept that neutrality is not enough when it comes to racism?
Neutrality. I'm not racist is a neutral statement. Really? I'm not racist is neutrality. I'm not a murderer is a neutral statement. I'm not a Canadian is a neutral statement. Okay.
I think because it takes a lot of work to be anti-racist.
Oh, yeah. I don't doubt it takes a lot of work to be anti-racist. I'm doing a lot of work just trying to understand what anti-racism is, and my brain is tired already. Thank you, Brian Has Opinions, formerly the Broken Baller. They are brainwashed NPCs. He is their Black Jesus. I've heard him described as woke Gandhi in some places, but I don't... I guess I had hoped for something else. I have a feeling that our interviewers are already true believers, so to speak, and that we're not going to get much, nothing even approaching adversarial discourse here, even polite adversarial discourse.
It takes, you have to be very vulnerable, right?
You have to be very vulnerable. You have to be very vulnerable to admit your sin. I guess that's true to a certain extent.
You have to be willing to admit that you were wrong.
Right. I mean, wrong. Right. Wrong.
You have to be willing to admit that if you have more, if you're white, for instance, and you have more, it may not be because you are more.
Oh, if I'm white, for instance, if I have more, it may not be because you are more. Oh, okay. So, I'd love to unpack that a little further, but let's continue.
You have to admit that, yeah, you've worked hard potentially in your life, but you've also had certain advantages which provided you with opportunities that other people did not have.
I'm circling privilege. Even though he hasn't said the word, he's all but given the definition.
You have to admit those things. And it's very difficult for people to be publicly and even privately self-critical, I think it's also the case of, and I should have probably led with this, how people define racist.
Yes, it would be nice if you would define these things, because it's difficult to know what being not racist is and what anti-racist is if you're not defining your terms. So tell us, what is your definition? And I can only assume it's going to be your definition, all things considered, of what it means to be a racist.
And so people tend to define racist as like a fixed category, as an identity. This is essential to who a person is.
Well, it can be. I mean, racism, if you are actually practicing racist, requires racial identitarianism. You identify yourself as part of a select group, a special group. Or conversely, you could also see yourself as part of the wretched group, because this is the part that it doesn't really get talked about as often. You can be a racist against yourself, as we've seen many, many times. You know, white people are terrible, says a white person, and I must confess how terrible I am, which is kind of what the anti-racism is apparently meant to encourage. So that, I mean, racism can be either the elevation or denigration of another race against one or more others. Even the demographic to which you belong, if you're denigrating that demographic. So yeah, now that is the simplest, most modern term or understanding of racism. Now you could go even further into that, because there have been examples in the past of peoples with the same, observable skin tone, but seeing each other as from different tribes for very subtle differences and otherwise, that could qualify as racism. What was it? If I mispronounce this, I apologize, but the Hutu and the Tutsi tribes are peoples in Africa. They were at war forever simply because one was a Hutu and one was a Tutsi, sort of like Gulliver's Travels or whatever, where like one nation broke their eggs with the big side up and the other nation broke their eggs with the little side up, and therefore that was the reason why they hated each other, kind of thing. Something inconsequential. But anyway, that's the basic definition of racism in the modern day. An elevation or denigration of one race or more races simply on the basis of racial difference. And okay, sorry.
If someone becomes a racist, and so therefore, and then they also connect a racist with a bad, evil person.
Well, being a racist is a limiting, ignorant sort of position to take. If you have no other reason to dislike a person or a group of people simply on the basis of nothing else but their skin color, which is not a determinative factor in character, then yeah, I would say that is a failing as a thinking, critical human being. Does it inherently make you an evil person? I don't know. My grandma, she's a racist. She grew up in the frickin' Depression, Dust Bowl era. Yeah, she has a very, very, very antiquated mindset of what left is of her mind. But is she an evil person? She raised her family, paid her bills, didn't hurt anybody. She's just a bitch. I guess it's a game of degrees. It depends, I suppose. I don't celebrate the fact that she's a racist, but
they connect a racist with a Ku Klux Klansman or woman. They're like, I'm not in the Ku Klux Klan.
Yeah, and the Ku Klux Klan is so popular these days,
I'm not a bad person.
Yeah.
And I've done good things in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I've done good things to people of color.
Uh-huh.
And so therefore, I can't be racist. I'm not that. That's not my identity. But that's actually not how we should be defining racist. Racist is a descriptive term. It describes what a person is saying or doing in any given moment. And
Whoa. Okay. It's a descriptive term Used by whom? An outsider. Someone who's assessing someone else's actions. I mean, if someone's actually a racist, true down to the bone, an actual racist, why would they have a problem saying, I'm a racist? Why would they have a problem? You go up to them and say, if you suspect somebody's a racist, you say, all black people are terrible, aren't they? Why would they hesitate? If they're actually a racist, if they're actually a racist against black people, why would they hesitate? Why would they say no? Why would they give rhetorical power to that which they hate if they're actually a racist? I mean, like I said, I've gotten into convoluted and unintentional conversations with my grandmother in the past about such things. She doesn't hesitate. She has no problem spouting off what she thinks of certain ethnic groups. She'll mutter it under her breath or just sort of say it about things or whatever. And it just, she has no problem with it. Why would somebody who's actually a racist deny it? Why would they fight you on it? If they actually have an identitarian philosophy about themselves based on skin color, what would be the point in denying it if it's part of their identity, if it's part of how they assess themselves and other people?
So when a person in one moment is expressing a racist idea, in that moment, they're being racist when they're saying black people are lazy. If in the very next moment, they're appreciating the cultures of native people, they're being anti-racist.
Wait a second. What? Hold on.
Person is saying or doing in any given moment. And so when a person in one moment is expressing a racist idea, in that moment, they're being racist when they're saying black people are lazy.
Okay, in that moment, they're being racist.
If in the very next moment, they're appreciating the cultures of native people, they're being anti-racist.
Okay. So in the span of 2 moments, someone can both be a racist and an anti-racist. So even anti-racists could be racists. Thank you, Bicall the Driving 8 Man. Our friend clearly doesn't know about the BLF. I'm not sure that I know about the BLF. Is that a bacon, lettuce, and fried chicken? I don't know. Okay. To review briefly, and I know I've done it many times now, to say you're not a racist is to live in denial. To be an anti-racist is to be confessing. But you can be both a you can be both a racist and an anti-racist at the same time, because not racist doesn't exist. There's only racist and anti-racist. So, oh my God, maybe I do wish I was drinking right now. That's it? What? This is not pausing. This is not melodramatic pausing for effect. This is just like palpable bewilderment. And watching our 2 interviewers, I can only imagine how they're trying to rationalize everything they've just heard into something that makes sense to them, something that sounds reasonable. And how do you respond to that?
And, we're going to get to some questions from our community in a moment, but I think when a lot of people hear this idea that you're putting forward, this idea of anti-racism, there's this feeling that this is something that only concerns the white community. And so could you speak a little bit to how the Black community and non-white, other ethnic minorities can participate in and think about this idea of anti-racism.
Yes, because if racism permeates our entire society, that doesn't really leave a lot of room for exceptions. So, okay, guys, now I've come up on an hour and 15 minutes. Like I said, at the max that originally I said I'd go an hour and a half. I am still curious to hear more, but I don't want to go on forever necessarily if you guys aren't interested either. So, and this isn't me like asking for permission to go forward. I'm fine wrapping this up in 15 minutes for the sake of things. I think we've heard the core of what the argument is as best as it can be expressed. And you can evaluate the quality of that, and we will shortly. So if you want me to keep going past the 1 hour, 30-minute mark, put a 1 in the chat if you think that you've heard enough, and this is enough to digest. Put a 2 in the chat, but we'll continue at least for another few minutes before I make that call.
Sure. So if white Americans commonly say, I'm not racist, people of color commonly say, I can't be racist because I'm a person of color.
Right.
And then some people of color say they can't be racist because they have no power. And so first and foremost.
Okay, real quick. That was always the redefinition of racism as I've heard it the last several years, that racism is about power plus prejudice. You cannot be racist if you don't have any power. And if you don't have any prejudice, but you do have power, then you also can't be racist, apparently. Something like that. So power plus prejudice. Okay. Let's see. I'm seeing some 1s, 2s. Okay. Yeah, a lot of people I'm seeing a lot of people saying that they're kind of like, on the edge or not really. Okay. I'll give it a few more minutes and we'll see if anything really interesting comes up.
What I've tried to do in my work is to push back against this idea that people of color have no power. There's nothing more disempowering to say or to think as a person of color than to say you have no power.
Well, now I'll admit that is a bit surprising. That goes against the whole benevolent condescension thing, the soft bigotry of low expectations sort of notion. So at the same time, though, if he just was talking about white people, he could be accused of being racist. I wonder if he would confess his own sins at that point.
People of color have long utilized the most basic power that every human being has, and that's the power to resist policy, and that's the power to resist racist policies.
Okay, that wasn't the question.
That's the power to resist a racist society.
So people of color have a special power unto themselves?
But if you're a person of color, and you believe that people coming here from Honduras and El Salvador are invading this country, you believe that these Latinx immigrants are animals and rapists, then you're certainly not, if you're Black or Asian or Native, going to be a part of the struggle to defend Latinx immigrants, to recognize that Latinx immigrants have much to give to this country.
Are we talking legal or illegal immigration? Because you can be for the law and not be against an ethnicity,
As any other group of people, you're going to view these people as, quote, taking away your jobs.
And
so therefore, you're going to support racist rhetoric. You're going to support racist policy.
No. Being in support of immigration laws, or at least the legal arrival to this country, is not an inherently racist position. Immigration laws are not inherently racist policies. Conflating these things together is an error on your part and an accusation without merit if you have no evidence of such. You are conflating these things together. That to not want people to break the law, to have people follow the rules, is inherently racist. Yeah, you had me for a second there. You lost me immediately.
And even though that is probably going to be harming you, in other words, it's going to be harming if you're Black immigrants coming from Haiti and in Nigeria.
What? If a Black person in America is against illegal immigration and some immigrant coming to America illegally is from Haiti or Jamaica or something, then opposing illegal immigration is harming the Black American because the immigrant is also Black? How?
If you're Asian, immigrants coming from India. And so I think...
What? What are you talking about? Okay, you know what? I take it back. I'm not going to go any further. He has lost the plot. I have no idea what that was supposed to mean. Absolutely none. He's given us his definitions. The title of the talk was The Difference Between Being Not Racist and Anti-Racist. He gave us the definitions as best as I assume he can. And these notions are the foundation of the, what was it called again? I don't have it in front of me. It was like the foundation for the study of the anti-racism research or whatever. Let me find it one more time here. Because I just want to make sure I get this right. So he is the director of the Center for Anti-Racist Research. Thank you, Chicago Mike. Why pick on Latinos? You can be an illegal immigrant from Canada too. It's not racist to be against illegal immigration. Yeah, exactly. Being for immigration laws is not an inherently racist position. And I don't know where he was going with the, if a Black person isn't for someone who is also Black coming to the country illegally is therefore harming themselves. An Asian person not being for someone coming here illegally who's from India or Asia in general is harming themselves. How? I don't, okay. So this thinking, these paths of logic are what just netted $10 million in donation money. And after listening to all of 12 minutes of this and listening to the sales pitch of definition of what is a not racist versus an anti-racist and the inherent contradictions and complete leaps of logic and assumption, what is there to research? What is there to discover? How is this an area of science that requires research? These are all articles of faith. Faith that the entire society is inherently racist. Faith that anyone saying they're not racist is a liar. And faith that somehow confessing one's sin is the road to salvation. What is there to research? What is this just in this one example, what is the $10 million from Jack Dorsey going to go towards? What discoveries are to be made? I don't know. And again, our speaker wrote the book on this, How to Be an Anti-Racist. And when asked point blank to define his terms make no sense. I mean, not to me. Obviously, it's probably because I'm white, but I mean, I tried to think him through. I tried to weigh him next to each other, his statements. He's obviously practiced this. He knows what he's talking about. He is the foremost expert on this subject, director of a research institute, writer of the book on the subject. You can't really find a better expert on the notion. Did he convince you? Did he make any sense to you? Didn't make any sense to me. All right. All that being said, let me bring up the bingo card here as where we're at right now. And let's see. Let's go over it one more time. What haven't I circled? Patriarchy. Never brought it up. And I understand maybe in the course of the next 40 minutes or whatever's left in the talk, he hits other marks, but we're only going to operate on what we've done so far. Patriarchy, no. Plays victim. I mean, technically, I suppose if he believes the entire country is racist, then he's perpetually a victim. So, yeah, all right. Plays victim, sure. Wage gap. Never brought up economics. Childhood or family anecdote. Never talked about himself. Anecdote that probably never happened. He never really gave us any anecdotes in that time. White supremacy. I mean, he mentioned the KKK. So I guess just by association, I'm willing to circle that one. Because those are white supremacists. A list. Not formally. I mean, he listed off things like what are the tenets of it, but he didn't give it like here's my 5-point steps towards, whatever. Toxic, no. Make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason. I mean, kind of. I mean, he brought up slave. Oh, that was the weightless example. For no reason. I mean, it all had a reason. Didn't necessarily always make sense, but it wasn't unrelated. I guess that I'll let you guys convince me one way or the other on that one. Microaggressions, unconscious bias. I never use the phrases. Leaves out vital context. Yeah, I'm circling that one. He kept bringing up statistics and racist policies and like how illegal immigration is inherently racist, or the whole Latino thing about what policy was making Latinos get COVID more than everybody else? No. Self-vilification or wretchedness. If he at any point in this thing confesses to his own sins or something, then maybe, but in this instance he hadn't yet. Benevolent condescension. Well, he avoided that at first by saying, black people aren't, as an example, aren't inherently immune to racism. But then he immediately said that they possess a power that others don't. So I'm not quite sure what to do with that one. You guys let me know what you think. Just updated the card there. Equity, no. Marginalized, marginalization. I don't believe he ever said any of those. Feminism, no. Takes credit for something done, experienced by others in their demographic. He brought up examples of the past. He didn't relate them directly to himself specifically. So unless I'm missing something. And melodramatic pausing for effect. Well, I mean, the long pauses between him, quote unquote, giving an answer and then the next question by the interviewers felt melodramatic, felt like he was, like his summation was somehow really meaningful. I'm going to circle that one just because of, I don't know, I guess enhanced showmanship or something. I don't know how else to put it. But, okay, we are, gosh, marginalization. He never said the words. Zan Wild, equity, yes. He said racial inequity several. Oh, did he? Oh, he did, didn't he? Okay. All right. I got you. All right. Equity. All right. Let me update that. Okay, that's where we're at now. Marginalization or patriarchy. That's a tougher sell. Does what he says constitute marginalization? Because he did include ultimately all racial groups. Let's see. That one term is Scribely. We should keep going. He'll surely say marginalized within the next 2 minutes or so. Well, okay. Here's the thing. What was the goal of this, to get a bingo? No, the goal isn't to get a bingo. For me, I mean, if I can finish the thing in a reasonable amount of time, like a 15-minute TED Talk or something, the goal is to get through it, to listen to the argument, and to take it in its fullness, right? And so far as I can tell, we've had it. The point of the talk was to give us the difference between not racist and anti-racist. And he gave us his definitions as irrational and unreasonable and as contradictory as they were. He gave us the sales pitch. And it didn't land. For me anyway. So do I stretch this out any further just on the off chance he might say something so we can get a bingo? I don't know. I'll give you a minute or two, chat. Sell me on it. Should I keep going or should I not? I mean, I'm willing to give it another like 15 minutes or so if you think that'll actually benefit anything. But let's see. Zalbla says we should keep going. Satania said we should keep going. Anthrax says I agree. This is interesting. Keep going, says Atheist Icon. That one sort of saying, Scribelight was his weightless example about race, sex, etc. for no reason. No, his weightless example was bringing up slavery and the divine right of superiority thing in the middle of talking about what it meant to be an anti-racist. That part. Mike R., you didn't read my super chats. I didn't? No. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Mike R. Please keep going, Scribe, and having way too much fun with this. Death Dragon says, "Go, keep going." Go. Oh, okay. All right. We'll continue. I gotta bring the video back up. Oh God, where did we leave off? Oh no, I gotta bring the video back up again because I changed the window. Oh, where were we at? Like 12 minutes, I think, something like that. I think we're at 12 minutes, like 12 minutes and 12 seconds or something. Hold on. Sorry, guys. Once I switch what I'm showing in the tab, I got to redo it here. 1 second. Okay. I think I'll start at 12 minutes. I think we were just about at that point. All right, hold on. 7th. Okay. All right, there's abouts. Okay. All right, we'll go for, hold on. It's apparently not showing it on the thing. Let me try this again. Share audio. There we go. Okay. All right, we'll give it another few minutes and see if it still keeps our interest.
If you're Asian, immigrants coming from India. And so I think it's critically important for even people of color to realize they have the power to resist. And when people of color view other people of color as the problem, they're not going to view racism as the problem.
What?
And anyone who is not viewing racism as the problem is not being anti-racist.
If you're not viewing racism as the problem, you're not being anti-racist. Christopher Fluette, thanks so much. Irony, when you can clean your kitchen and bathroom in the time it takes for someone to explain racist, anti-racist babble. Okay. I'm sorry. I gotta hear that again. I got one more time because I just want to make sure okay.
From India. And so I think it's
okay, hold on. Sorry. I don't mean to keep this. I am attempting to understand or at least comprehend.
You, in other words, it's going to be harming if you're Black, immigrants coming from Haiti and in Nigeria. If you're Asian, immigrants coming from India.
What does that have to do with anything? If you're Black or Asian and you're an American and you oppose illegal immigration and there are immigrants from a nation of people who are Black or a nation where people are Asian, you're harming yourself by opposing illegal immigration? What?
And so I think it's critically important for even people of color to realize they have the power to resist.
It's critically important for people of color to realize they have the power to resist. Because people of color don't realize they have the power to resist? Is this a power not possessed by anyone who's not of color? Because only white people are in the opposition?
And if when people of color view other people of color as the problem, they're not going to view racism as the problem.
If people of color view other people of color as the problem, what if they view white people as the problem? Are white people not included in racism? Wow, thank you, Killer Turnus, so much. Biggest problem with these woke plans and ideas is that they have made no attempt to make it understandable to people who don't already buy into their propaganda. Good luck understanding it without already being woke. Well, that's where I'm trying to go with this. It's like, okay, I want to understand. And if in that attempt to understand, I find that it's all nonsense, then I've understood it. Because like I said, this is a very popular and very well-funded line of thinking right now. How to be an anti-racist is becoming the must-have book right alongside white fragility right now. And so I'm just trying to get, what does it mean? What is it that it's doing? What is it that it's promoting in people? What are people going to be moving around the world believing and espousing, sorry. My vocabulary took a bit there for a second. In their attempts to be enlightened, in their attempts to be virtuous in some way. Okay.
And anyone who is not viewing racism as the problem is not being anti-racist.
Anyone who's not viewing racism as the problem is not being anti-racist. And all these just nods, these sage nods. Yes, yes. You're not going to ask him please ask him a question. Please ask him a question about what he said. Come on, stop just nodding. Come on.
You touched on this a bit in your beginning talk here, but you've talked about how racism is the reason that Black communities and communities of color are systemically disadvantaged in America, which has led to so many more deaths from COVID-19 in those communities.
No, specifically Latino communities. Wait, did she say Black communities or hold on, sorry, I'll back up a little bit here. Just make sure I didn't misunderstand something.
As the problem is not being anti-racist.
Okay.
You touched on this a bit in your beginning talk here, but you've talked about how racism is the reason that Black communities and communities of color are systemically disadvantaged in America, which has led to so many more deaths from COVID-19 in those communities.
Okay.
And yet the media is often placing the blame on people of color for their vulnerability to illness.
Are they? I don't know. I don't know what media is saying that. The media is saying that people of color are more vulnerable to illness. Okay.
So I'm curious, in line with that, what is the relationship between anti-racism and the potential for systemic change?
Okay, yeah. How does anti-racism change COVID from infecting people? I guess. Killer Turnus, did you see my super? Yeah, I read it. Biggest problem with these woke plans and ideas is that they make no attempt to make it understandable to people who don't already buy into their propaganda. Good luck understanding it without already being woke. No, I understand at this point, especially after hearing his definitions, that you have to be a true believer, an unquestioning follower, to go along with this. Because obviously any measure of skepticism is denial, and denial is not anti-racist. And anti-racist is the good thing, and the good thing is confession, and confession is to admit to the inherent sin that you obviously possess, to ask questions, to doubt in the message of anti-racism is itself an indication of your failing and as a racist. I get it. I guess at this point, I just want to see how far down this rabbit hole goes in rationalizing away rationale.
I think it's a direct relationship.
Okay.
Because
how?
when you believe and have consumed racist ideas, you're not going to even believe change is necessary, because you're going to believe that racial inequality is normal, or you're not going to believe change is possible. In other words, you're going to believe that the reason why Black people are being killed by police at such high rates, or the reason why Latinx people are being infected at such high rates is because there's something wrong with them and nothing can be changed.
There's something wrong with them and nothing can be changed. So all the uproar, and before the riots, before all the destruction, all the uproar over, say, George Floyd, on both sides of the aisle, wasn't like there were people saying he got what he, well, I'm sure there were people out there saying he got what he deserved, but in general terms, you had Sean Hannity and Rachel Maddow on the same page when it came to George Floyd right after that happened. So I'm going to say that a large majority of Americans on both sides of the aisle saw the George Floyd thing as outrageous at best and absolutely monstrous at worst. Right. And then COVID infections, there's something wrong with Latinos that make them vulnerable because they're Latinos. Honestly, if I had been told there was some higher rate of infections amongst Latinos prior to this talk here, I've forgotten it. So and in him saying that, I thought it sounded ridiculous to say that there's something inherent to Latinos, but he's saying it's inherent to policy. Still waiting to know what the policy is that's causing it then. What policy is causing Latinos to become more infected than others?
And so you wouldn't even begin to even see the need for systemic structural change, let alone be a part of the struggle for systemic structural change. And so to be anti-racist, again, is to recognize that there's only two causes of racial inequity. Either there's something wrong with people, or there's something wrong with power and policy.
Power and policy. So again, if you see a statistical disparity between two racial demographics, there's only two possible explanations. The God or the devil. That's it. Don't think any further. Don't consider any other factors. Don't look any deeper into it. That's it. Simple answers for complex problems. This sounds very familiar, doesn't it?
And if you realize that there's nothing wrong with any group of people, and I keep mentioning groups.
Yeah, that is the misnomer, isn't it? It should be demographics.
You know, I'm not saying individuals. There's certainly Black individuals who didn't take coronavirus seriously, which is one of the reasons why they were infected. But
oh, when you say groups, you're not talking about individuals. Now that's a mistake of terms I wouldn't have at all arrived at. So never mind.
there are white people who didn't take coronavirus seriously. There's no one has ever proven, actually studies have shown that Black people were more likely to take the coronavirus seriously than white people. We're not talking about individuals here. And
well, then what policy is causing certain racial demographics to become more infected than others? You said policy was at the heart of that situation. What policy is making that happen? That's the one thing he brought up at the beginning of this, policy leading to COVID infections, that I'm still waiting for more information on.
We certainly should not be individualizing groups. We certainly should not be looking at the individual behavior of one Latinx person or one Black person and saying they're representatives of the group. That's
you brought up Donald Trump, an individual, as reflective of American society. You brought up Amy Cooper, an individual, as a reflection of
a racist idea.
Sorry, I hit the button. Amy Cooper as an example of the pervasiveness of racism in American society. No, you do not get to make that move in this chess game. You do not get to take back suddenly what you already used as the basis for your argument. You have taken individual anecdotal examples of individual anecdotal actions or ideas or comments or just saying Trump's name by itself, and use these to justify the notion that these ways of thinking are the standard. They are pervasive. They are internalized amongst all Americans. But now you can't say that individuals represent quote unquote groups, or more appropriately, demographics. Now you say that's not the case. So Amy Cooper doesn't represent anyone other than Amy Cooper? Donald Trump doesn't represent anyone other than Donald Trump in that regard? Or don't they? Which is it?
Idea in and of itself. And so I'm talking about groups. And if you believe the groups are equals.
They're not groups. They're demographics. They're not hive minds. They not carry membership cards and have a common belief set like the Masons or the Rotary Club. They're demographics. You're making assumptions about every demographic in America as to how they think, whether they're conscious of it or not.
Then the only other alternative, the only other explanation to persisting inequity and injustice is power and policy. And to then spend your time transforming and challenging power and policy is to spend your time being anti-racist.
Okay, here's something that I am going to circle now, because now that I think about it, when he was talking earlier about internalizing racism and not being aware, that's unconscious bias. You know, admitting you said something racist, had a racist idea, and so on. So I'm circling unconscious bias. Okay. I will go I will go for the 2-hour mark, and then I will wrap up, guys. Unless something absolutely extraordinary happens.
So we have some questions that are coming in from the audience.
Okay.
First one here is from a community member that asks, when we talk about white privilege, we talk also about the privilege not to have the difficult conversations. Do you feel that's starting to change?
I hope so. And because I think that white Americans too need to simultaneously recognize their privileges.
All white people have privileges. White Americans. Demographic, not group. Okay?
Privileges that they have accrued as a result of their whiteness.
Accrued as of our whiteness. Such as?
And the only way in which they're going to be able to do that is by initiating and having these conversations.
So white people need to initiate, quote unquote, these conversations in order to recognize their privileges. Thank you, Bacall Driving 8 Man. Sure, let's burn the house down to fix the toilet. Our speaker has double backed on himself 2 or 3 times now. Yeah. I don't know what else to say about it at this point. We'll see.
But then they also should recognize that yes, they have more. White Americans have more.
White Americans have more, but you're not talking about individuals representing groups or demographics. But white Americans have more, full stop. Okay?
Due to racist policy.
White Americans have more due to racist policy. Full stop. Okay?
But the question I think white Americans should be having, particularly when they're having these conversations among themselves, is would we have if we had a more equitable society, would we have more?
If we had a more equitable society, would we have more as white people? Because all white people have more.
Because what I'm asking is that, white Americans have more.
Yeah, you keep saying that over and over again. I'm wondering, are you trying to convince us or are you trying to convince yourself?
Because of racism.
White Americans have more because of racism. Okay, how? How?
But there are other groups of people in other Western democracies who have more than white Americans.
Well, how is that possible? And there aren't any people in in America who aren't white who have more than white people? I mean, if we're going to talk about statistically, on average, the factor of wealth from one racial demographic to the other, Asian Americans have more than white Americans. So what do you say about that?
And then you start to ask the question, why is it that people in other countries have free healthcare? Why is it that they have paid family leave?
What?
Why is it that they have a massive safety net?
I mean, Canada's mostly white and they have nationalized healthcare. Britain is mostly white and they have nationalized healthcare. So the white people in both those countries still have more, right? What?
Why is it that we do not?
Why do we not have nationalized healthcare? Well, that is a question that's been going on for quite some time now. I don't know. You want to talk about healthcare policy? We don't have. Wait, so we don't have nationalized healthcare because of racism?
And the answer to one of the major answers to why we do not is racism.
One of the major answers to why we do not have is racism. We do not have a nationalized healthcare system because of racism. Okay.
One of the major answers as to why Donald Trump is president of the United States is racism.
Why was Barack Obama president of the United States? Twice.
And so I'm not really asking white Americans to be altruistic in order to be anti-racist. We're really asking people to have intelligent self-interest.
Intelligent self-interest. We're not asking white people to be altruistic. Intelligent self-interest. So pragmatic. You want white people to be pragmatic, not altruistic. Why? Because you can't expect white people to be altruistic?
Those 4 million, I should say 5 million poor whites in 1860.
5 million poor whites in 1860? You want to talk about the poor whites in 2020, maybe?
Whose poverty was the direct result of the riches of a few thousand white slaveholding families. In order to challenge slavery, we weren't saying, we need you to be altruistic. No, we actually need you to do what's in your best, in your self-interest. Those tens of millions of Americans, white Americans, who've lost their jobs as a result of this pandemic. We're not asking them to be altruistic. We're asking them to realize that if we had a different type of government with a different set of priorities, then they would be much better off right now.
So a different government would not have locked down the economy, would not have locked down the nation. The various governors of the states of this country would not have themselves imposed lockdowns on the economy if Donald Trump wasn't president. If Hillary Clinton was president, our economy right now would be swimming. Okay, we have so diverted off the plot, and I've gone to the 2-hour mark. So one more look at the bingo card, guys, and then I am going to wrap this up because I'm not going to be here we'll be here all day if I keep going. Patriarchy, no. Wage gap, no. Well, he did bring up economic disparities. Oh, well, yeah, you know what? A wage of a kind, not the male-female wage gap, but white people have more. So I'll circle that one. Wage gap, I'll circle that one. Childhood or family anecdote, no. Anecdote that probably never happened, no. A list, no. Toxic, no. Make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason. He brought up a lot of things that don't really have any place in any of this. I mean, he's brought up a lot of things that don't have anything to do with anything else, but for no reason. You know what? The policy that leads to COVID infecting more of one demographic or another. He never justified that. He never went into that. I'm circling that one. I just, in the context of that example, he never explained any of it. So, bingo. Self-vilification, wretchedness, no. Benevolent condescension, that he needs people of color to understand the power that they have because they obviously don't understand themselves or their own lives or anything. Yeah, circling that one too. Marginalized, marginalization. He's gotten close to enough that I would circle it, but not specifically enough. And of course, if I did circle that, we would have a triple bingo, wouldn't we? Oh, yeah, I know the purpose isn't necessarily to get a bingo, but that's pretty close, isn't it? Feminism, no. Takes credit for something done, experienced by others in their demographic. No, although he brought up a whole bunch of other examples from history that don't really seem to have anything to do with anything. So, okay. Well, let me save that there real quick and then put it up one more time. There you go, guys. That is our final bingo for this. I'm sure that if I went for the full hour, we'd have 3 more squares filled up, even possibly a triple bingo. If you guys feel that in the course of all of this, that marginalization was alluded to enough that it makes sense to circle it, by all means, circle it for yourself. You can call it triple bingo. I will not argue with you, but for myself, it just didn't quite reach the threshold. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's it, guys. I honestly, I don't know if I can go through much more. Well, then why don't you scribe light? Because I have rules, Mike. I have rules. I have internal rules, and it's sacred, and I can't be loosey-goosey with this. It's my own my own internal obstacles. That's what I do. I want to keep the bingo card must be kept holy and sacred. Check your logic says double bingo. Double bingo over what? If marginalization was circled, we'd have a triple bingo. I say, Ryan Rollins, Scribler, the rules are rigged from the start. They aren't rigged. They're rules. I didn't rig this to not get a bingo. We got a bingo. So anyway, everyone, I'm going to end it here. For those of you listening in the future, obviously, went longer if you're seeing the time. Well, you would have already seen the timestamp. What am I saying? Anyway, honestly, and truth be told, I did learn something here. I did not know what the rationale, what the definitions, what the argument was for whatever this concept of anti-racism is. And now I know from the source, from the director of the Center for Anti-Racism Research. You can't get much more expert than that. And now we all know that when asked simply, what are the definitions of being not racist versus anti-racist, we've heard it. Anything else beyond that, honestly, is filler. And there was a whole lot of filler here. So, all that being said, everyone, thank you so much for joining me. I do mean that seriously. Excuse me. Thank you so much for your participation. This show would not be anything of what it is without it. Thank you so much for your generosity. I am bowled over by how generous you guys are. I really do appreciate it. It'll all go towards horrible things I'll put in my body, like goldfish, the crackers, not the animals, and Jack Daniels and Dr. Pepper, as I'll probably need a drink later to just manage what I've had to absorb today. If you would like to hear more from me, or Satsu 2 Cents, or the Ranting Monkey, you can find all three of us tomorrow night, Monday night, at 6 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Mountain, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, for the Lords of the Night, where we'll talk about the news of the day, news stories you submit, what we've been up to on the internet, and your questions and comments. Thank you, Zan Wild, so much, Dogcat Fox. Hi, Dogcat Fox. And thank you, Silly Goose, so much for the Dogcat Fox. Bye-bye, Dogcat Fox. Wowie, wow, wow, says Dogcat Fox. Everyone, hope you all enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I also hope that you are all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon. And I will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.